On March 8, 2017, Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter spoke to reporter Alexis McAdams and carefully responded to two questions she asked him about DNA.
I know that we have the human element, we have a very solid science element. We're using every capable process that we have from a scientific perspective, as everyone would expect us to, and we will continue to do that until there's nothing left to do.
Would that include DNA?
It does.
Was DNA found at the scene?
It includes DNA.
Someone close to a prosecutor, not Nick McClelland, revealed 3 years ago that the investigators have unmatched partial touch DNA with only 6 markers on the shoulder of a sweatshirt or jacket of Liberty German, and that they didn't know if it was the killer's. This is older information, and it might not be completely accurate. They may have figured out whose DNA that was by 2024 and may or may not be able to exclude persons of interest with that DNA or other DNA that they may have acquired from the crime scene. Defense attorneys in the past have questioned the validity and strength of touch DNA to help their client. In the Ronald Logan search warrant, it was also revealed that investigators may have fiber and hair evidence. It has been speculated that maybe the hairs acquired from the crime scene may be animal hairs, and people have speculated maybe it was dog hair, and some have speculated that maybe the hairs could be connected to Richard Allen's cat he owned. On May 30th, 2018, the Allen's cat Ozzy passed away. They also had another black cat and also owned dogs. Tony Klein had his dog taken away when they searched his home in 2021, and a neighbor was on camera around the time the search of his home had occurred, telling the news media the police took his dog. I found out that his dog was actually taken and tested by law enforcement. I don't know how true that is that the dog was taken, and I'd assume maybe the dog's DNA and hair was compared, but I'd consider the source trustworthy. Hair evidence is often not used for evidence by the prosecution at trial because it's often the case the hairs found are inconclusive. Mitochondrial DNA is passed from the mothers to their offspring, which is shared among maternally related cats and dogs, but cannot individually identify a cat or dog directly. Mitochondrial DNA, which is the rootless hair, can exclude or include a specific cat or dog, which could be the suspect Richard Allen's cat or dog. Mitochondrial DNA could match a specific percentage of cats or dogs, just like mitochondrial DNA with humans, but it also might not be the best evidence depending on the other pieces of evidence in the totality of evidence which is acquired and the circumstances of the crime. If the hair sample does not have a root, then it won't have nuclear DNA to compare to make a direct DNA match. That goes for humans and dogs and cats. However, I heard that new studies may have shown that nuclear DNA can be acquired from a rootless hair from new scientific advances in a method used for sequencing random DNA strands called whole genome shotgun sequencing. Scientists can tell through analyzing hairs that the hair is a cat or dog, and they can also tell if the hair is human or animal based on the medulla of the hair, because the medulla of animal hair is much thicker than in human hair. In February 2022, Keegan Kline had claimed in an interview with Barbara McDonald that he had given over his DNA and had done a hair follicle test. It could be that his DNA was compared to the crime scene evidence, and he may have been excluded from the DNA which investigators had acquired. His alibi with his cell phone data not putting him in Delphi on the day of the murders is another reason why investigators may have thought that he did not kill the girls. In April 2022, Tony Klein told a friend that he had taken a polygraph test just like his son Keegan did, and Tony said that he had passed the test and that he had given over his DNA. A relative of Jimmy Dale Duvall claimed that he was cleared through DNA. I don't know how true that information is. I do know, though, that his alibi was that he was with his mother at the time the murders occurred. Investigators looked at him as a possible person of interest early on as of February 2017 due to his criminal history committing a similar type of crime in his past, and because he was on the sex offenders registry in Indiana. Many people accused him on Facebook of being the possible killer of Libby and Abby. Douglas Rice showed one of the 3 juvenile witnesses a picture of Jimmy Dale Duvall, and she claimed she saw a man who was similar looking to him. Richard Allen bears a resemblance to Jimmy Dale Duvall. On February 16, 2017, James Lucas was called by police and had his phone taken. James Lucas was one of the first DNA swabs in the case. In an interview with Sleuth Intuition, Patrick Westphal told him that he was interviewed for an hour in August 2023, and he voluntarily submitted his DNA and said it wasn't a big deal because he was in the military and they already had his DNA. In the defense's Odinist 136-page memorandum, it claimed that Elvis Fields had given over his DNA. Shortly after the first-year press conference, YouTuber Michael Catt interviewed former Indiana State Police Sergeant Kim Riley and brought up the possibility the killer's DNA was not in the database and that the killer may not have committed a crime before.
He had never committed a crime, he has no DNA in the database?
Well, I can't comment on that, but I'm just saying that's what it looks like. I mean, there's a possibility he's done something, but we can't find no traces of it.
That was my first thought. I thought anybody at that age that would commit a crime like that would have priors.
Well,
You know?
you never know. You know, you got to start somewhere. I'm not the jury. All we do is collect evidence.
No, right, but that's why I was just wondering if there was any.
In early 2023, a relative of Richard Allen had briefly gave their opinion if the Indiana State Police had Richard Allen's DNA, and they seemed doubtful as they claimed his family member's DNA is in the system, and their own DNA was on GEDmatch and every other DNA site which stored DNA data files. Former cold case detective Paul Holes had gotten in contact with investigators in the Delphi case and gave his opinion on the DNA and alluded to them having an uphill struggle. Paul Holes is known for his work to help solve the Golden State Killer case using advanced methods of identifying the killer with DNA and genealogy technology. In the Down the Hill Delphi Murders episode from February 2021, news reporter Barbara McDonald asked former Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lazenby if the investigators have fingerprints, and he said yes, but he doesn't know if they are the killer's fingerprints, and he also said that the investigators have DNA, but it's not known if the DNA is the killer's. In the same episode, Barbara McDonald talked to former Indiana State Police Sergeant Kim Riley, and he told her there was 4 different crime scene technicians working at the scene for at least 4 full days. He also claimed there was cigarette butt, spit, and urine in the area of the Monon High Bridge Trail area, but he wasn't specific if that was close to the actual crime scene spot where the girls' bodies were found. The Monon High Bridge Trail and the crime scene area with the creek would play a problematic role for crime scene analysis because of the possibility of contamination of the crime scene. The water and the damp environment would make it more of a difficult task for the crime scene technicians and investigators. In the Odinist 136-page memorandum released in September 2023, it claimed that Tony Liggett testified under oath that there is no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. Rick Allen's defense claimed Jerry Holman also testified that there is no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. They also stated that there is no evidence extracted from Richard Allen's computers and no data extracted from his phone which connects him to the murders, and that there is no fingerprint evidence that connects Richard Allen to the murders. In one of the footnotes, the writer Andrew Baldwin claimed the defense were picking up new discovery on September 18, 2023. From the October 13, 2022 search of Richard Allen's home, investigators searched his vehicle, his Ford Focus 2016, and they took a cutting of a carpeted area underneath the spare tire of the car. They took swabs from the driver lap belt and 1 swab of the driver shoulder belt of the Ford Focus and took 2 swabs from the passenger side carpeted floorboards. If the DNA cannot rule anybody in, but can rule potential suspects out, which might not be the case, but that is me speculating, then maybe Rick Allen wasn't ruled out, just not ruled in, or just doesn't match the unknown DNA that they acquired. If they were still taking DNA, which could simply be standard procedure, around September 2023, then maybe it isn't Rick Allen's DNA, and it may not be the killer's, assuming Rick Allen is the killer, which I think you could assume, given the new charges he was charged with in March 2024. The investigators may have figured out who the unknown DNA connected to, along with the fingerprints, and the evidence is not connected to the crime. On March 29, 2024, attorney David Hennessy represented Rick Allen's defense counsel at their contempt hearing on March 18th, went on Defense Diaries live show to talk about a fundraiser for Richard Allen's defense team to obtain funds to acquire experts to help them for Richard Allen's trial. David Hennessy claimed the prosecution has experts such as a blood splatter, DNA expert, and Odinism expert, and claimed the defense need more experts for a more even playing field. Hennessy said the crime scene was poorly taken care of by crime scene technicians. Hennessy also talked about the prosecution, geofencing, and phone dumps. On the same day of Rick Allen's defense counsel's contempt hearing at the Allen County Courthouse in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on March 18, 2024, in the court, in the first hearing, Judge Francis Gull approved the new 2 counts of murder prosecutor Nick McClelland filed, but dismissed 2 counts of kidnapping. The original 2 counts of murder filed in 2022 accused Allen of murder in commission of a felony, which was kidnapping. Those 2 counts remained. The 2 additional kidnapping counts were not added. Rick Allen faces 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of felony murder. At the May 7th hearing, Nick McClelland claimed the state had damning evidence against Richard Allen, and it's been speculated that the damning evidence could be phone data which implicates his involvement in the murders. Did something new come up after September 2023 and in 2024, which may have given a more conclusive answer to Rick Allen's role and might prove that he killed Libby and Abby? Was an item found used in the crime, or an item from the girls, or was there new trace DNA evidence acquired from his home and/or vehicle? Geofencing has been brought up, but I don't think geofencing played a part from the area of the Monon High Bridge Trail near the crime scene. Geofencing isn't a magic bullet and is hit or miss depending on certain factors like the location and environment of the area. In the Rachel Morin case, it hasn't been effective in helping to find out who the suspect was, seen on camera at the Los Angeles home with his phone in his hand. Rick Allen's lawyers, Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rosie, haven't brought up unknown DNA to my knowledge in any of the motions they filed, and they haven't brought up the chain of custody regarding the bullet in some time either. Elvis Field's sisters and Indiana State Trooper Kevin Murphy were not called up to testify at the hearing which occurred on March 18, 2024. I think if something is truly real and true, which proves Allen's innocence and a third-party culprit had committed the murders, then the defense would not need to lie and twist information about specific details like with their Odinists did it theory. Criminal defense lawyers do like to twist and like to maneuver around obstacles with the prosecution's evidence, but I think eventually Baldwin and Rosie will run out of cards to play and will no longer be able to continue to stall. They've had an ample amount of time to create a solid defense for their client. There's no point whining, and if the prosecution has no case, then why didn't they just go through with the speedy trial? It should be easy for them if the prosecution's case is weak. There's no excuses. I think some people in the Delphi community want the Delphi case to be more complex than it actually is. I think some never want it to end because they made the case their identity. They desperately want other actors to be involved, and I think they were bamboozled and were caught up in the rumor internet hype machine that this case is. I think some people wanted others involved so badly they tried meddling in the case in a fruitless attempt to get the answers, which would somehow reveal another actor or actors. I think the case has affected some of these people's mental health negatively, and I think if they started to accept reality and focus on their own life, they would be happier. I was bamboozled with the Klein theory for a period of time until I woke up and realized I was being inadvertently trolled by Indiana State Police. That's what it felt like to me, but in actuality, they never claimed Keegan Klein or his father were suspects, and the Delphi community simply helped fuel the fire of speculation. I never thought either one of them were bridge guy because they just looked too tall and their body types didn't match. The goalposts kept being moved with people who believed the Kleins were involved, and I think even now some of them have a hard time believing that it was all just likely a coincidence that Keegan was talking to one of the victims. I can see why people thought the Kleins were involved given the timeline of events. I just didn't think Keegan Klein was connected to Rick Allen because it didn't make sense in how it would all go down, and in my head I felt it would have been too complicated for two of them to work together to plan a murder for that specific time, considering Libby and Abby had only planned to go to the Monon High Bridge Trail about an hour or so beforehand. I made videos for a friend about Keegan many months before Allen's arrest, and one of the videos was about a gun being found in the Wabash River, and I did not believe it had anything to do with Delphi. I put some stuff out which I didn't think was legitimate and had previously debunked information I had put in a video a couple of years prior, which I had forgotten that I had already debunked. On October 15th, 2022, I uploaded a video titled The Hitchhiker, which was about a woman who was traveling from her job in West Lafayette, and as she was on her way home at around 8 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, traveling through North State Road 25, she came across a work vehicle with its four-way flashers on, parked in the grassy median area. She noticed the vehicle had a logo on it. She pulled over to the shoulder of the roadway and cracked her window open enough to talk to the man by the vehicle and put her dome light on to see him better, and said the man she saw was Caucasian, between maybe 30 and 45 years old, possibly close to 6 foot, between 210 and 240 pounds. She said that the clothes were not the same as the police suspect pic, and said that the man she saw was wearing a light jacket over the top of a lighter brownish tan hoodie. He told her his first name only, and that he worked for his dad's business, and his vehicle had broken down, and he was trying to get to his girlfriend's house in Delphi. She said she couldn't give him a ride, but did offer to call someone for him or for a tow. He told her not to worry about it, and that he had already let his dad know, and it was okay for him to continue to walk. Some people thought maybe these screenshots with text were about Keegan and his father. The man the woman is talking about was registered sex offender Aaron Facemeyer. He was tipped in. He told the female witness his name was Aaron. She saw a picture of him and said he was the person she saw. On Thursday, March 16, 2017, Detective Kevin Hammond of the Carroll County Sheriff's Office responded to an email about the woman's tip and said that the guy, Aaron Facemeyer, had been cleared. The Kokomo crew, or Sons of Odin, have been pulled out of the goodie bag again, and some people are claiming that they were the real killers and were at the bridge that day, that it was an initiation of some kind. A woman claimed her daughter had been sexually assaulted by this crew on February 13, 2017. I never saw any real proof or evidence that any of the Kokomo crew were there. I heard a person in the Kokomo crew may have been in a vehicle with paper plates, and maybe a woman with the initials MW may have seen an older vehicle, but I don't think the vehicle was linked to any members of the Kokomo crew. I think after Allen's arrest, many people speculated about how he was caught, and many assumed maybe his daughter had helped get him arrested, and there's rumors that the son-in-law helped and tipped him in. I've not seen any real proof of that until I do. I just consider it a rumor. It could make sense, and it might have coincided with the lost tip narrative, but until I see actual real proof, I'll remain skeptical. I think investigators rolled the dice to some extent to arrest Richard Allen, and I think after 5.5 years there was never going to be a perfect time to arrest the suspect. I think they have the right guy, but I could be completely wrong, and I might end up having egg on my face. Maybe another actor will appear out of the shadows. We'll see, I guess. Hopefully there's no more delays and the trial will start in October.